Well, everything's opening up, the world's back to normal, but also, it's the K2B Show Season 2, which means one thing, time to go back to Pacman. If you missed Pacman, I haven't too. Last time, 7 months ago, we looked at Pacman and saw how, how he had home games at home, of course, games you could play at home that were similar to the arcade, but different in little modifications. We looked at the Atari 2600. It's not as bad as people say it is. We looked at the NES version, which is more equivalent to the arcades. But today, we're looking at some other Pacman games, of course. Different. Now, they're not all the same Pacman games, but they are different in variety. So let's start with Pacman on the Game Boy. So let's start with Pacman on Game Boy. If you really need to take Pacman on the go wherever you want, here you go. Pacman on Game Boy is very similar to the original Pacman in many ways, although there are a few small differences. One of them being, as you can see, the maze is a tad bit bigger because they couldn't squeeze the giganticism of the maze into the tiny Game Boy screen. So, for obviously resource things, they had to make it big. It doesn't change the game that much all of a sudden, it just means that you have to kind of, move around the maze to get there. It's just Pacman, but with a bigger maze. It may throw you off a little bit from age, but I promise you it still plays just as well as the original Pacman did back in the day. There's no difference between the two. Sound effects are a little bit different, and it is monochrome because it's a Game Boy. But aside from that, and the screen may be moving when you go through the little tunnel thing, it's Pacman alright. It's Pacman. The best, it's Pacman. That's all I gotta say, it's just Pacman in a monochrome. But, for the early 90s, I'd say it's pretty damn good. Of course, Pacman's not all alone. He's got a family, goddammit. He has Miss Pacman and Pacman Jr. His Pac family. Yes, Pac family. Miss Pacman was also released on the Atari 2600 not alongside Pacman, but after Pacman. See, after Atari found out that Pacman was bullshit, they said, okay, we gotta step our game up and make a better Pacman. The better Pacman came in the form of Miss Pacman. Now, Miss Pacman is a modified version of Pacman in general. It's Pacman with a few maze differences and stuff like that. So, it's still Pacman, but with a few differences, essentially. Speaking of maze differences, there is another version of Pacman we'll look onto later that has maze differences. Get ready for that one. But for now, that's jumping ahead. Let's look at Miss Pacman on the Atari 2600. Okay, so it's Miss Pacman. The first thing you will notice is that you can move the sprite and it will go in different directions. The sprite doesn't just stay where it is like it really happens. It moves up and down, left and right, these crazy directions all the time. I mean, another thing that you notice is that the ghosts have a specific eye colour when you get eaten by them, which is a nice little detail, in my opinion. Also, a differentiation from Pacman's original, cherries will sometimes fall out of the map. They will come in, and you've got to catch them. Instead of in Pacman, they'll be placed still. In Miss Pacman, they move around a bit to give it a variety. Now, of course, that's not the only difference. Difference is, of course, the maze looks a little bit different. It still is bang, 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 but it sounds a million times better than that piece of crap that we used to play. Personally, Miss Pacman is better than the original Pacman in every way possible. It's what Pacman should have been originally, but unfortunately wasn't. Atari really stepped their game up with Miss Pacman. She's not Pacman with just a bow. She is her very own unique game, better than the original. And of course, the Pac son of them all, Pacman Jr. on the Atari 7800. We're jumping consoles now. From 2600 to 7800. Why choose 7800? I don't know, just did. So this is Pacman Jr. on the 7800. Of course, not much to say here, but it is. And it was my first time playing Pacman Jr. and Miss Pacman as well, believe it or not. So, an experience for you, an experience for me. Okay, so Pacman Jr. You may think, oh, this is another Pacman, isn't it? No, difference being the maze is hella bigger. Look at that giant maze to play about in, eh? It's a big beauty. Of course, it still is Pacman at its core, but the difference being is that it's all a little cutesy now. Pacman Jr.'s got a little propeller hats on, and you can go around and speak to the ghosts. Sound effects are a tiny bit different than the original Pacman, a bit more brighter, you know. But in its core, it's still Pacman, and I love Pacman Jr. so damn much. You may be wondering, well, okay, it's fine now, it's a good game, but what differences are there that other than, you know, it means the original? Well, that was a difference. Pacman propeller. Oh, and also some items that I've changed about a bit, you know, but they don't have to worry about them. Items changed about a bit. But that was back then. Now we're jumping ahead a few years into the future. 2007. Pacman Championship Edition is a lot like Pacman in general, although you may notice the more modern glossiness of it. First of all, Pacman and the ghosts are glowing neonish, I could say. Something like that. I suppose it's a nice little aesthetic, you know what I mean? A cute little aesthetic. The aim of this version of Pacman, of course, is to get the fruits. If you, for get the fruits, you've got to get all the dots on one side of the maze. A piece of fruit will open. If you get that fruit, another version of that maze will bring you onto that side. If you get the fruit on the other side, the maze will burn on that side. Of course, your job is to get as much food as possible. There is no next level, there is no time limit, baby. You gotta get through the entire time limit, and then once it's done, you check your high score, unlock Xbox achievements, and that is that. There's Challenge Mode 1, which is kind of like the original Championship Edition, although you may notice all the dots around. Now, this is all these dots are around for a reason. You got to be very damn careful to use these dots. If you know what you're doing and you know how this mode is doing out, you will have to do this. Get a power pallet, wait for the ghost to come out, and then bam, blast them. Then eat the other power pallet, then bow. Eventually, you'll get to a point where you can just rack loads of lives. Once you've racked all those lives, of course, what do you do next? Well, you just play the game normally. Get the pellets, you know, get the fruit. Eventually, you will get the opportunity to get the power pallet again. It does take a few more fruits to get there, but once you get there, you keep blasting those ghosts and keep getting extra lives. The whole point of Challenge Mode 2 is survival of the goddamn fittest, and you better be the fittest and get that new high score. Once you get that new high score, post it on your Xbox feed, and all your friends are gonna be, whoa man, he just got the high score in Pacman Championship Edition Challenge Mode 1. And you be like, fuck yeah I did, because I'm the Pacman boss. Challenge Mode 2 is more of a, how do I explain it? It's more of a, what's that word? It begins with an N. A nocturnal vision zone. There we go. You may notice that everything is all black and dark. And don't get me wrong, you may be thinking, well, there's power pellets around. How can it be hard? Yeah, well, that's the thing. Once you get these pellets, of course, then the map looks invisible. And once you're down to the final few pellets, it gets a little bit hard because the maze is all over the place, and you've only got the glowing armies of the ghost and yourself as Pacman, which is why they have the little bright effects for this one challenge mode. Is it cute? Yes. Is it a giant gimmick? Absolutely. But it's fun and trying to test your memory and nocturnal vision. Of course, if you know the maze that damn well, you could get through this thing pretty damn fine. But if you don't know the maze that well, it's a little bit hard for certain people. But for me, you get used to it and you strive along. Could be having more power than you had earlier. Also, you may notice another thing, it's slow as all hell. You may be thinking, damn, this Pacman's a little bit slow, don't you think? Yep, but you'll be more about that when we get to the next mode. Challenge Mode 2 was slow as balls, but Extra Mode 1 is fast as all hell. You better have your goddamn video game goddamn senses high as a fucking kite to play this thing, because extra mode doesn't fuck about. You gotta go fast, and I mean damn fast. You've gotta have the reflexes of a goddamn cheetah to get through this mode. It's fast, it's zany, it's crazy, and believe it or not, the ghosts don't last that long being blue. They're blue for like 5 seconds, then they go to be normal. So you've got to blast through this Sonic style. You can't mess about. Every turn matters. Every angle you do matters. Every thought in your mind matters. You need to get down and crack on, because this extra mode ain't messing about. You need to sort out and look and watch everything those ghosts do. Watch everything you do. Have your senses of the maze become one with the maze, and you will fly high through extra mode 1 of Pacman Championship Edition, and you can become the master of the supersonic pallet muncher there, the supersonic pellet muncher. Gobble those ghosts at high octane speeds and show everyone why you are the pellet muncher. So that's, I'm joking, there's more modes to this thing than there is just original. There are about, 6 modes to Pacman Championship Edition. Because of course there are. Of course there are. Of course there are. There's many more modes. So that is all of the Pacman games. There is, the original Pacman on arcade. There's some things over there. Then there was a Game Boy, then a few others, and then we were here on the Xbox, where we are now. Pacman's come a long way. Yes, there's a Championships too, but that will be another episode entirely. But you know what? I want to talk about this Xbox Live Arcade stuff. Next episode? Maybe. Brighter days are coming upon us, so anything's possible. See you all later, guys. Now, excuse me, I have to go play some more bootlegs in the bootleg zone. Sonic Adventure 7? Again? Damn it.